What up, y'all? And this one is for Ronnie Stone, a Patreon review. Ronnie Stone, Right Again. I've never heard of this guy before, and it's actually pretty cool. It's straight up 80s synth pop, but it's some of the more interesting 80s synth pop I've heard, especially like new 80s style synth pop stuff. Because I'm real picky with the 80s music like that, and because a lot of it sounds the same, and there's a few bands that I do like, Oingo Boingo and Talking Heads and shit, but or at least the 80s stuff they were doing when everybody went into that stuff, but there's been a lot of artists in modern pop music right now that have really been leaning into that 80s synth pop kind of shit, and it was cool at first. Then it started to get a little old. I was like, all right, here we are. I mean, when the newest Yeah Yeah Yeahs album just kind of sounded like that, I was like, all right, here we are. It gets boring to me. But what I will say is, it does have its boring moments, but it is some of the more interesting because it doesn't sound like a modern artist doing 80s music. It straight up sounds like it came out of the 80s. It's pretty damn impressive the way every little aspect on all these songs just straight up. You could throw this in an 80s synth wave, new wave kind of playlist, and I don't think most people would even. They would probably think it was an artist from back then that they've never heard before. But so the first track, Right Again, starts off kind of reminded me of The Cure a little bit, and the piano bits remind me of, what was it, Dreamland era Robert Miles? I mean, but it's very small. It still just kind of sounds like 80s music to me. But I dug it. Then the Diamond, I thought the Diamond was cool because it sort of had an old school classic kind of industrial beat. Then moves into just good 80s new wave shit. Feels like Duran Duran and Ministries with Sympathy, and it has really cool synth lines. But then Backstreet Leather Toy is fucking awesome. The female vocals to me really elevates the song, and the groove is really good. It's a little yacht rocky and stuff, and so really good. Chemicals is another one that I really like. I love the claps and the sort of whip kind of snare sounds and shit, and the really cool bright synth lines and all that. Really cool little song. Then you get Cala Loiza, something like that. Nice bright synths. It's one that does get a little boring, but it's not bad. It's just like, all right, here we are. Then we get Daddy's Last Night in Town. It's another one that's good with bright synths, yacht rocky, and it's just not too different. Then the last song. This is where, in fact, these two songs, there's only really like 3 songs I'm kind of like checking out, but those two are definitely them. But then Disappear Here is fucking great. I love the music. The lead guitar bits are really cool. And it's definitely more interesting than the last 2 songs. Then we move over to the final track, Return to Love. And it's a fine yacht rock kind of ballad, and it's another boring one. And I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of a boring way to end the album for me. But 3 out of 9 songs. It's pretty decent. I dig the album. I don't know if he's somebody I would follow, but I would check out some of his stuff, later stuff or earlier stuff, because it's interesting enough. I do like how it just sounds like it came straight out of the 80s. It doesn't sound like a modern artist doing 80s kind of music. Like, it doesn't sound like Paramore's After Laughter. It doesn't sound like what the hell was that song from The Weeknd recently, where I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, it doesn't sound like that. It sounds straight up like 1985, 1984, and 1986 kind of shit. Right before, maybe right before that kind of music started to get a little played out. Hell, maybe it was played out before 85 and 86. I wasn't there, but yeah, definitely worth checking out, and possibly checking out whatever the dude does later on. But with that, we'll see you guys in a little bit.